This conference will now be recorded.
I appreciate you, Valerie. Um, the so today we're going to talk about what seems to be working, what people have tried, uh, what people have questions about still, and some of the challenges that I'm seeing as I go out. And as I was starting to say a minute ago, there are 10 areas. 5 of them are for all providers: day, vocational, residential. 5 are specifically for residential, and that 10th one also does pertain to the day folks as well, and that has to do with accessibility and just that your program it meets accessibility standards for all the people who are attending. Um, the rules are the same as they've been for all of the previous classes. You must attend the entire webinar. Um, to obtain a CEU. CEUs are granted through Kern Regional Center. We recently learned that if you are an RCFE, a facility for the elderly, evidently Kern Regional Center's CEU credits do not pertain to them. They don't have they didn't get the certification from licensing from Community Care Department of Social Services specific to RCFE. So these only apply to adult day that are licensed and to residential facilities for adults. Um, anyway, so if you have more than one person at your location, you must identify every person who's on this call or on your screen so that we can make sure that we get credit to all of the people that are been identified. Um, um, at the end of this presentation, we'd like you to send to Irene at Bakersfield ARC, um, and her information's just been put up in the chat. Uh, 3 concepts that you learned today so that we know that you indeed attended the whole session and that you received some value from the session and it was helpful to you. So with that being said, we are moving ahead. A couple of things are happening as we are going through this. One is the last few sessions that this grant had through the CQL, the quality leadership folks. We ended up canceling because of low pre-registration. Um, what we're looking at for next year is if we get approval from Regional Center, we're in the process of asking them to switch things over. If they do approve it, we'll be looking at a program where you'll be able to get on to the training resource when it's convenient for you. So you wouldn't have to do a class. I will still be offering these classes monthly, but for the ongoing trainings, there will be where you would get on, log in, the cloud would keep track of you and how you did in this class. You then take a exam at the end of the class. If you pass the exam, you would then get credit for that class. And then both Bakersfield ARC and Kern Regional Center could track who's taking the classes, how they're taking the classes. So that's what we're proposing for next year. That has not been finalized yet, but we hope to have that done shortly.
And Jeff, sorry, just an update. The CQL classes that were for the following month have been canceled due to low attendance.
Yeah, so there will not be any in September. But we are looking at some alternatives, and we also are talking with a couple of different alternatives, and we may offer the CQL POM training uh, next year as well. So we're looking at how we can continue to make this material relevant to meet your needs. And if you have any ideas, please do get a hold of us. And you can go through the website to Bakersfield ARC and tell us what would work for you or what you'd like to see in terms of training, and we'll do our best to try to see if that's something that we can do, and if other individuals are interested in that as well. That's something to look forward to. In addition, very shortly, it's my understanding it just got completed at the end of last week. Uh, the Tom Pomerantz training, which occurred in June of this year, will be placed on the Bakersfield ARC website. Although that was training that was done through another grant through Positive Purposes, Bakersfield ARC has graciously um, uh, allowed us to use their website to house this material. So the training that Tom did last year is on the website. It's broken up into 6 units. You can take, if you want to use those for your staff. It's excellent training. It is available currently on the BARC website. And like I say, within the next week or so, the 2 classes that were done this year, the first one being on working with individuals who are currently
want to get your information, and I'm going to talk
consumers,
to
making them into
I'm going to talk to my coworker and see
whoops,
what she thinks.
making people who are currently consumers into producers. So getting individuals into uh, work type settings, volunteer work, other community based activities of value to that individual. The second one that was also videotaped is more directed specifically towards primary individuals who receive services and their families. The first one is a 6-hour training. Second one is about a 4-hour training, and those are, like I say, will be online shortly. So you look forward to that. More information will be coming out in early September when Bakersfield ARC does its September newsletter. Okay, now moving along. So here's what we're going to do today. What we're going to talk about are the 10 areas that encompass the home and community-based waiver. Okay. Now I know that it said in the online that this today was going to be on individual program planning. We've done a number of things on individual program planning, and I thought maybe you people would benefit from hearing about what I've been seeing since we've started doing the assessments and what people are saying. And then I would very much like if any of you would like to unmute at any time and come on in and to the conversation in regards to any of these areas, please do so. First one that I wanted to discuss is being part of the community. And what I did with all of the 10 areas is I've set up 3 like a matrix. Uh, what have we tried related to the standard? So what am I hearing as I go out and talk to providers? Um, what's working? What's not working? And what are we still trying to figure out? What questions do we have? So 3 areas that seem to be themes of uh, the assessments that I and the team that I belong to have been doing. Also, I meet weekly with regional center quality assurance staff, and they share what they've been finding as they go out into the field. Now, in the first column on the left, we have what have we tried related to the standard community outings, both individual and group. Um, this is something that many providers, when you go out and talk to them, we've been doing that for years. We've always been taking our uh, uh, individuals out into the community. Well, what we're looking at now is more than just out and about. This has to do with Yeah, this table will be made available. Um, and that will be available a couple ways. One, if you ask for it through Irene, she can get it for you. And then two, since this is being taped, this will be put on the Bakersfield ARC website, so it would be, you can see it there as well. Um, the I go sometimes to the Valley Plaza, and I'll see a group of individuals walking through the mall. And walking through the mall is really not a community. I mean, you're not in the home, you're not at the day program, but are you really out in the community? If you're not interacting with anybody, you're in a group so that people walking by see this group of individuals who are different. It really doesn't meet what we're trying to accomplish with the home and community based waiver concept of integration and a sense of community. So how do we go about taking people out, both either individually or in groups, um, and do it in such a way that it integrates those individuals or provides them an opportunity to interact with folks who are not uh, part of our system. Uh, some of the providers have told me that they've tried to partner with employment. So some of the day and supported employment type settings have told me how they've been working towards finding more meaningful employment opportunities for folks. Uh, Historically, people have been involved with gardening, janitorial, fast food, and how do we get people into other areas so that employment opportunities for individuals with IDD expand into other areas? In addition to that, as many of you may know, if the individuals you work with are involved in sub-minimum wage employment, where they're being time studied and they're being paid based off their productivity rather than what minimum wage is, that will be phased out here in California in 2025. So the sub-minimum wage at the federal level, it's called a 14C permit. It's through the Department of Labor. It's the section of the code, the labor code, that allows for paying people less than minimum wage, will be phased out in California. I think 14 other states have done that as well. The federal government's looking at doing that. And so, probably over the next few years, the option of employment at less than minimum wage will not be an option. Um, some providers have told me that they've tried to go all services are community based. And with that comes some exciting new ideas and some challenges. One provider shared with me that what do they do if someone needs assistance with toileting and the staff person who's taking the group out is of the opposite sex? Or how do you supervise, making sure that you supervise the other individuals that you're supporting when you're taking that one individual into the restroom? And also, what happens if for some reason someone has some uh, behavioral challenges while you're out in the community and you're a group of three or four or six, and how do you sort of work with that one individual while you also are addressing the larger group? And that can also be a challenge. And then making sure that you're integrating the services into the larger community. What are you doing to make sure that what you're doing isn't just out and about? I've had this happen to me twice recently, where I've gone out to a public park and seen a group of individuals sitting on benches in a shaded area, just sitting on benches in a shaded area. Now, that provider could be saying that, well, we're out in the community. And by the way, this is while I was out of town. It wasn't at a current facility, but we're out in the community. We're doing things out there, but what are they doing? They're just sitting there on a bench in the park. They're not doing any. They're not uh, engaged in games. They're not engaged in taking a long walk through the park. They're not interacting with anyone else in the community. Um, this is a activity where they're just basically sedentary, uh, but they're theoretically out in the community. But is that really out in the community? Some of the what's working and not working. One of the biggest issues that people have shared with me is staffing. Um, Depending on the ratios that you have for your type of program, that can be a real challenge. So, for example, if you're a 1 to 3 ratio, and you have one client who wants to go out to the shoe store to look for a new pair of sneakers, what do you and the other two clients or the other two residents or people that you're working with do not want to go out. How do you go ahead and take that one individual out when you have a grouping of 3? And that's really been a challenge. Where I've found that this in some ways seems to work the best are in day programs or residential programs that have more intensive staffing. The programs that are at one staff person for 2 individuals, one-on-one, et cetera, obviously their ability to take someone out into the community at an individual request is much greater than it is for those that are at 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 6. Um, some people are fearful about going out. I've talked to some providers who say the clients don't want to go. They don't. They don't like being out in the community. There's still a some people are still concerned about the COVID uh, virus. It's it's made a resurgence this summer. It seems to be at the highest level for summertime since 2022, and there is a new vaccine that came out this week, but still, some people are not either vaccine hesitant or resistant, or don't really feel comfortable utilizing the community. Um, Transportation is a barrier, depending on what how your program is configured. Do you have transportation available? And if you do, and one person wants to go in one direction and another person wants to, or another group of folks want to do something else, are you able to do that? Uh, can you use public transportation for the individuals that you serve? Um, and then taking the individuals you were out into the community. Some places are very welcoming and are happy to see you out and about. And I've talked to some providers who have had experiences where they feel like the wait staff or the people that the customer service clerk or something was not that friendly or not that helpful, and they were wondering whether that was related to the nature of the fact that these were persons who had a disability who were in that setting. Um, some people have told me that they've tried to use um, volunteer options for the folks that they work with. And that can be challenging. Some people have had success with that. Other folks have said no. They went over to, let's say, to a place that distributes food, and they said no, we really can't use you, or if we do use you, want you in the back there. And so it's varied all over the map in terms of what I've heard about uh, using volunteer settings, which is not to say that you shouldn't try to do that or use that as an option, but you may find that you have to try more than one setting to find a setting that both works for the individuals that you're serving and also is receptive to the assistance that you're providing. Coming up with ideas, developing communities, virtual and in person, can be a challenge. I was just talking to someone the other day, and I was saying, there are some experts in the field that say anybody should be able to work. That the problem that some individuals have challenges in the workplace is not that individual. It's us in not finding something that's creative enough to meet their needs. And I said, okay, I think of myself as being a fairly creative guy and have worked in this field for a long time and have come up with some unique options for folks at times. But there are still other folks that just baffle me, that I have not been able to quite figure out an individual strength-based plan that really works well for that individual, where they don't continue to have some challenges to that setting. And I will continue to work on it, and hopefully you will as well. But the idea that coming up with ideas will continue to be a challenge, and that's part of who we are and what we do. I mean, we got into this field because we like working with people, and so to work with those challenges can be exciting and can be a very beneficial, especially when you figure out and that experience that really clicks for that individual. Uh, Limited experiences with where to go and what to do. This is on a couple of levels. Sometimes the individuals you're working with, when you ask them where they want to go, they have a limited uh, range of experiences that they've been involved with, and they will share with you what they know, uh, and that may be very limited. And then also what we know, just where we think about and where we go might be somewhat limited. Some people go all over the town and other places. Some people tend to be homebodies and are fairly limited in terms of the store, the doctor's office, maybe one or two other places in the community, but not a whole lot. So we really need to be respectful of that and look at what experiences we want to go. Um, Integrating services into the larger community over to the far left again, encouraging individuals to participate in local, let's say, I'm just using this as an example, YMCA, Parks and Recreation, and applying for local employment opportunities, activities, Special Olympics. There's a lot of things that are potentially out there. Um, the issue sometimes comes up of whether the individuals in your facility can, and this is more for residential, but also for day services during the program day. Can the person sign themselves out? Can they leave your service and supports area to go do something else that they want to do in the community? And that is, again, on an individual basis, depends what's written into their person-centered plan through the regional center and through your service plan. And it's been agreed to by the complete team. And you need to look at that in terms of uh, that being part of the community. Um, some providers were honest with me and said, no, we haven't done anything yet on this. And we need to really start looking at how we can really do the community more. Or I had one I went out and talked to recently who said clients don't, or the residents in this case, they don't really want to go out. They just want to stay home. We attempt to get them out there, and they're willing to take a walk around the block. But other than that, we haven't really been able to get them out and about. And so that would be a challenge on how to motivate people, how to get the, and if we really truly believe in personal choice, when is that a choice? When can someone say, uh, I'm a homebody, I don't want to go out? And how do we make sure that's an informed choice, that they're making that based off of having all the information? Um, One thing I heard from a few different providers were weekly meetings for planning and connecting people with their interests and hobbies and what they enjoy if they can't come up with things on their own. So getting the whole group together. And also, if you do have DSPs in your home, maybe having them sit in on the meeting as well. And if possible, vary the staff that sits in. So maybe one time this staff sits in, the next time someone else sits in, so that we really tried to get new ideas at the table of where possible things can go. Um, Monthly calendars have been an idea that some places have gone to, where they put up a calendar, or they get the calendar, like the Bakersfield Californian every month has on the last Saturday of the month, they have the Bakersfield magazine. It has a calendar of events. There's calendars of events. You can go online uh, and get yeah, some of the TV stations on their websites have event calendars, et cetera. So you can find different places so that you can start offering those to individuals. Some of them have costs, and that can be a challenge because, if you're talking about the individuals who are on SSI and their funds that they have available is somewhat limited, you have to look to try to be creative again in terms of finding that. Um, One of the other issues that is involved with uh, making or using community is, do people have control of their personal resources? Do people have control over their funds? And I've again heard everything all over the map in regards to this when I go out. This is obviously a residential issue. It's not so much a day issue, because most day programs uh, or vocational programs do not handle the individual's funds, but do individuals get their full? I was out at one, and it happened to be the day that the checks came in, and the provider said, "Watch, when the individuals come home from their day activity, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to come to me, because we were sitting at the dining room table doing the assessment, and they're going to ask for their funds. They want them today, yeah, and we give them their money for the month, and they then are responsible for it. Others tell me that they are more controlling in terms of giving people their monies, but giving it throughout the month. Historically, there's been a request to have receipts for larger purchases and things, and so you need to work with again your planning team on how this is done with each individual. Um, uh, Okay, so now, as we mentioned, COVID, everything's moved back into the house in some cases. Not enough staff to go around helping people to understand their options in the community. That's a big one. The people know what they know, and if they don't know that there are other options available to them, they won't be asking for those. So we want to make sure that they understand. Um, has not worked getting residents who generally cannot sign themselves out and make sure they have staff who can get them to places they need to go. So for some individuals, it's not an option to have them be able to sign out and to be able to utilize the community independently. Um, but overall, there's a lot more opportunity for folks. Uh, and as I mentioned earlier, volunteer sites might not be accepting. There are some um, throughout this stuff that's a little bit redundant, so bear with me. People get turned down in some places. We really don't need volunteers right now, or we need people who can, at a food bank, I heard one person told me, well, we need to make sure that they put like 2 cans of this, 1 can of that, the 2 pieces of vegetable, and it needs to be done the same for all every basket, and we want to make sure somebody who's doing that is able to be able to do that. What's an appropriate timeline to be part of the community? Is full community participation the best thing for the folks that you work with? When in the 2014, 2015, many of us that were in the field when the HCBS waiver regulations first came out thought that, yeah, hey, come 2019, which is when the original date of when we were supposed to be fully implemented, everything's going to have to be in the community. Nothing will be in day activity or supported employment type settings anymore. Everybody's going to be at work, and people who live in residential facilities will have total access to the community, etc. And as we got closer to the deadline, it seemed like people started backing off on that more. The feds are now, the federal government is going out and doing some auditing, and I've seen some places where they've sort of pushed more towards the greater community, and some places where they've said no, that what folks are doing, the sort of hybrid of both, is acceptable. And I think this is a ongoing, evolving challenge that we will continue to see over time as to what it is that we need to do to be in full compliance. So how do we determine whether or not someone is appropriate fit to leave the facility program on their own according to the compliance with the ruling? So, when do we let somebody independently utilize the community, and when do we still need to have staffing? And again, utilize your planning team to make those decisions. Ultimately, it's the individual's choice, but the planning team is a good way to really make sure that everyone is hopefully on the same page and that we're all working towards the same common goal for that individual, and the direction that we're working with makes sense. Finding resources to assist people to be part of the community, and again, can be a challenge. Sometimes some people have had an easier time. Some people are finding it somewhat difficult. Figuring out flexible scheduling to help people try things that they might like. Our individuals, for the most part, are going to programming during the day. Some who are in employment may be in afternoon, evening hours, weekend hours, etc. But most of our individuals are like what? The bus picks them up 7:30, 8 o'clock, gets to home about 2:30, 3 o'clock. But then after their programming day, if that's indeed the case, and they're living in a residential facility, what are we doing so that the rest of their day isn't necessarily programmed, that they have some flexibility on deciding what they want to do? I've gone out to many facilities where there seems to be a routine. People come in, that they do this, they do that. Well, you and I, in many cases, probably have some routine about what we do at the end of our workday. And if that's a choice, that's what the person can do. But on the other hand, have they been offered a choice? Can they do other things? Maybe they do different things on Wednesday than they do on Monday. And so we really want to try to figure out. And then figuring out opportunities for common facilities, like what's available with the parks, sports, social rec classes. For those individuals who are in day programming and living at home, there is social recreational options now available through a number of providers for Kern Regional Center. I know that Bakersfield ARC, who I'm affiliated with on this program, is offering a social recreational program, and they put out a monthly calendar, and that is a purchase of service that is done through the regional center as part of the person's service plan. But there are social recreation services for those living in residential is considered to be part of the residential service model. And so it needs to be provided by the residential facility. Um, the next one is choosing where and how to live. Um, uh, we don't have the biggest role in determining where individuals live and receive services. The individual rights are reviewed every year so that they know the options and communicate, and we need to communicate well with them. In most cases, what I've found for especially well for residential and in many cases for persons who are involved in day or vocational services, they've been in that service for a number of years, 4 years, 5 years, 10. I went out to one last week that the people had been there since 2002. So, what, 22 years? So, when we go out and say, well, were you given an option about whether you chose this facility? Well, that was like ancient history. They've been here for many, many years. And when you say to those individuals, do you like it here? Do you want to continue to reside here? Many of them, really, well, this is my home. Why is that even a question? But we do want to make sure that people know that they have options about where they live. Make sure to have a current KRC IPP. This has been a problem. When I go out to do assessments, on average, at least one or two of the individuals do not have a plan that's current, that they have last year's plan. Oh, we had the meeting in June, and I still haven't received the plan yet. Well, that's 2 months. So I know this is an issue, and it's been brought to the attention of the regional center, and hopefully that will be changing. There is now a new IPP format, which will go into effect in January of 2025. Kern had volunteered to be a test pilot for it, so earlier than January 1. However, as many of you know, they've had some significant managerial changes recently, and whether they're still able to do that when I think some of the managers are now wearing multiple hats while they go through the process of replacing and reorganizing their managers. I'm not sure. But in any case, the state has mandated that by January 1, the new IPP format has to be involved. Uh, it's important that we try to delineate options in the IPP. So it would probably be a good thing to make sure that the IPP states, and although we're not the one who writes it, to make sure to work with the regional center and make sure that it says that there was a discussion regarding different residential settings, different day settings, different vocational settings, and that the individual continues to choose to be in your setting, or that the individuals would like to explore options that might be available to see if they want to continue to uh, do that. So that way you've got it documented that the person who has been given a choice about where and how they live, how they receive their services, etc. Um, Communication with the individual includes the rest of the support system. So when we're talking to that individual about where they live and where they receive their services and supports in the community, if there is family involved, if there are friends, neighbors, other professionals, they're getting services from other systems as well. We'd like to get them involved, and making sure that the whole team is involved in this. The old saying of it takes a village to raise an individual. That's kind of what we want to look at here. one of the big questions that we're still trying to figure out is what is Kern Regional Center's role and what is my role in assisting individuals on reviewing options. So when we're sitting in that meeting and talking about, okay, do you still want to go here? We're not writing the plan. The regional center is writing that the individual service plan or the individual IPP. We're writing a service plan. How is that being reflected in there, and how is it being asked? And it's interesting because this is one of the criterias that you get graded on, but in many ways it has more to do with the performance of the service coordinator than it does you all. And again, what I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of long-term people, both in your residence and your day services, that have been there for many years. And so when people said, well, did you choose this option? 5, 10, 15 years ago, we would oftentimes say to someone, okay, BARC's a good program for you. Bakersfield ARC is a good program for you. NAPD is a good program for you. The XYZ group home is a good place for you to live. So we're going to refer you over there, and then if you like it, you can go there. And we really didn't necessarily offer people options in the past. So when we ask people now, sort of retrospectively, were you given options about coming here? A, do they even remember? And B, is it even relevant at this point? So what I really look at when I've been out doing evaluations is as of today, would you like options in terms of your services? Are you aware that there are other services out there? Because in many cases, the person may not even realize that they do have choices. And if you do realize that you have choices, would you like to see some of these other choices and then make decisions? Or are you comfortable where you are now and want to continue to stay here? And so we want to make sure, because it's their choice. It's the individual who is living in your residential program, the individual who's going to your day activity, who makes the decision about where they want to go. Okay. Next one is a big area, having privacy, dignity, and respect. When Dr. Pomerantz was here in June, he kept saying, look at it as, would you like to live under these circumstances? Would you like to have this as your place of employment or your place where you go during the day? Would you want to be an individual in this program? I've always wondered about that myself. I said, I wonder what it would be like to just maybe go to another regional center area in another part of the state and have them place me in a facility for a few days and see what it would be like to live as a resident in a small family home or a group home or whatever, and see how would I feel. So something to keep in mind. Uh, Providing a clear understanding of the HCBS rules, which emphasize the importance of person-centered practices that respect the dignity, autonomy, and rights of the participant. So we really want to try to let the person know, hey, wait a minute, the rules have changed. This is all about you now. This is about giving you privacy, dignity, respect, choices. It's not. I used to joke sometimes in the past. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and there was a TV show called Father Knows Best. And it was like, we talk about, used to be service coordinators, the case managers knew best. Residential providers knew best. Day programs knew best. And so we would tell the person, okay, this is what your program is going to be. And now it's sort of flipped, and we now say, okay, so what is it that you want, and how can we provide these services for you? Development of a person-centered plan that reflects the individual's preferences, needs, ensuring their right to privacy, dignity, and respect are upheld. So we've talked quite a bit about that. You need to make sure that that's what's going on. One of the questions that the assessment asks, do people talk to you like you're an adult? Seems like that's a no-brainer. But sometimes you go out, oh, how was your day, honey? Did they treat you nicely at the program? What would you like to do? What would you like for dinner tonight? I mean, it's stuff that you might do to someone who is a pre-adolescent. And we don't want to be doing that. We want to be talking to people and treating them like they're an adult. Staff training to recognize and support the individual self-advocacy and communication of their needs and preferences. So we want to train our staff as well. So it's one thing for you as the administrators to really understand this, but it's all about where the rubber meets the road. So how is that direct support professional, the person who is providing the one-on-one, the 1 to 3 ratio, the person who's serving the dinner, the person who's with the 4 individuals who are out in the community? How are they treating that individual? And are they encouraging those individuals to speak up, to share their thoughts, to say what they like, what they don't like? Um, Now, an important one that we see a lot is that the need for staff training regarding freedom from coercion and restraint. And restraint, so we talk about chemical restraints, use of medications, psychotropics, other sedatives, other things to, in quotes, calm people down, physical and mechanical restraints, things to hold people down, other, etc. And then also, what happens if someone has a situation where they're potentially could harm themselves or others, and you do what is our policy in regards to the use of uh, physical interventions? And I've encouraged facilities uh, to have a very specific policy on what they will and will not do in those situations. I also encourage folks that if they can to look into one of the professional trainings that are out there. There are about 4 or 5 that really look at how do you sort of identify someone who's escalating. Once they're escalating, how do you de-escalate that individual? So, and then if they do become, problematic, what is the best method to use, which is the least restrictive, to try to gain control back of the situation. Uh, if you do look at utilizing any type of restraints in a situation, be prepared, because the regional center and licensing will be out to look at what you did, and the training that you did for your staff and what you did, and hopefully nothing harmful happens to that individual or to your staff person in the process. So the more you can do, be prepared for these type of events and do a preventative strategy, so that the need to use restraints, you don't need to use restraints. That you can do things in a way that you can de-escalate is really the model that you want to use, and that's really what this is all about. It's about a no restraint type of setting is what we're striving for. Or if we do need to look at interventions, what's the least restrictive intervention that is evidence-based, that there's some research out there to show that it's helpful, and that the people have been adequately trained on how to use it. Um, Again, treating individuals as we would want to be treated, focus on capacities, preferences, interests, and needs. What what does the person like? I'm much more likely if you do something that I like doing than I don't like doing. Sometimes you know in my household we have 2 TVs, and so sometimes if my wife wants to watch a certain type of program and I'm not interested, I can go in the other room and watch something else or read a book or take a walk or just so that do people have the so we want to focus on what people like to do and what their interests are. Sometimes we have limited information from people who communicate differently. And this is something we really want to try to learn what seems to work for that person. Everybody communicates. Most of us do it verbally, but we do it non-verbally. How we uh, look at people, whether we're smiling, whether we're grimacing, uh, how we our body language, whether we're pushing away or coming closer. There's lots of different ways that we all communicate. So learning uh, communication, especially from those folks who communicate differently, is important. And then that can include adaptive communication, sign, braille, the communication systems, lots of different ways people communicate. Um, we want to advocate for people to express their wants and desires. What what do you want, and how can we help you to get that? Um, so within your location, you should limit or not have restrictions about where folks can go, with the exception of what licensing says they can't go. But in saying that, we also mean that we're talking about the common area. So you don't have access to other people's bedrooms. You don't have access to maybe the provider's space if it's a family home and the provider lives on the spot. But on the common areas, there shouldn't be any restrictions to services within that area. And then privacy in the bathroom. If someone needs assistance with toileting or showering, etc., then maybe only that staff person who is sort of designated to assist that individual goes in there with them. But again, we want to provide as much privacy as possible in bathrooms. It's strongly encouraged that there be locks on the door. I've gone out to some facilities and they said, well, no, because of the nature. We had one for the facility that I went out to, and they said, well, this client can be self-injurious. And so we need to be able to, if a situation arises, to be able to get into the bathroom. You really should have that placed in the individual plan. So if you do have individuals who, for whatever reason, can't have, you know, lockable bathrooms or privacy within the bathroom, that needs to be documented in their plan, and within that documentation, how we're going about respecting that person's privacy and dignity to the extent possible, and what we're doing to try to ameliorate the challenges that require the restriction. Um, how can we be even more visible to help community be more comfortable with people who have disabilities? It works both ways. Not only do we want our individuals to feel comfortable being out in the community, but we also want the community to be accepting of our individuals. So if we really are truly looking at full integration of folks, part of that is, acceptance. And we get acceptance by doing meaningful activities that show that our folks have the same wants, desires, would like to participate in the same activities as people who do not have disabilities. Having them do things differently, having them segregated, having them walk the mall in sort of a herded group doesn't give that impression that we want them. How to develop a meaningful plan with only limited ability to spend quality time. I mean, our people have a pretty programmed day, and so when they're not doing their day service, they're not doing stuff within the residence. When do we sort of give them time for themselves to make choices about what they would like to do? One of the challenges that we have is high turnover and caseloads at the regional center. So when we're sitting down and developing these plans that are really looking at making it so that individuals' privacy, dignity, etc., are respected, and we want to put this into the plan. And part of that plan is okay. So how much can that person do independently? How much can they use the community? What activities do they really enjoy doing? And here you have the regional center person is the writer of the plan and is really the person who's then taking it back to the regional center, and the services and supports that are being developed around that individual are person centered to meet their needs, and they have limited knowledge of that individual. That can create a challenge to developing and implementing that a plan that's meaningful for that individual. So you, as a provider who know the individual well, can sometimes speak up and really even more so encourage that individual to speak up for themselves. So part of what you want to do is you want to do teach advocacy so that that individual can share what they would like to see, and really and to work with them. So if they would like more independence, work on trying to develop the community for that individual so that they can utilize it more independently. Okay, independence is the fourth area of the home and community-based waiver. Um, find out what really interests individual and finding others who have those interests, matching staff with people. So sometimes within your DSPs, if you have more than one staff person, maybe if a client shares that they have an interest. I know that an example of this that I've seen is at Bakersfield ARC. There is one of the administrators really likes fishing. And there have been some of the participants in the program that's also something that they would really like, or they would like to develop an interest in that. And so we were able to sort of put together, staff with individuals who had a common interest, which then helped to develop that person's utilization of the community because they had somebody to support them and teach them more about that particular skill. Um, sharing strengths of each individual and having them use their strengths not only for themselves but guiding them to assist others with their strengths. So sometimes, an individual, if they show an interest in one area, can then help other individuals with that particular skill, and so that we can use peer models of one individual helping another individual. Um, interacting in the community with non-disabled peers. The name of the game in community services is trying to figure out activities that are with non-disabled individuals. The whole intent of home and community-based waiver is that our individuals that we serve should have the same sense and ability and opportunities that you and I have. And again, when we talk about that, staffing issues keep showing up over and over again throughout this whole thing. It continues to be a challenge when you're working with groups of individuals, staffing. Yeah, ideally, if you're taking groups into the community, what is it? What's the ideal number of people? Is it 1 to 2, 1 to 3? Can you do it with 1 to 6? Yeah, the smaller the grouping, the better. But there's funding involved. And how is your program? What's your program design say? What is the funding model that you're receiving? What if you're a residential facility? What level of care do you provide? And that makes a huge difference in terms of how much you can individualize um, services throughout the day. Uh, Monthly activities ahead of time so that people know what is available. So again, the whole idea, I heard this again and again. A lot of folks said that they really do have better luck with developing a calendar and trying to get events out there so people know what's coming up. People could say, well, hey, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. Um, um, Individuals know their role and how to contribute. So when you're talking with both your staff and also to the individuals that you're serving, everybody knows, what sort of kind of this is the way we're planning on doing things. This is how you can speak up, and so that we'll know that what you would like to do, how you want to do it. Uh, New individuals don't know their strengths, need to remind them of what they do right to empower them. So, as you're receiving new individuals into your home, into your program, a lot of times, especially those folks who have been in other programs or in special education or others, come in and they know they're different. They don't necessarily, they haven't really been encouraged to focus on what they are capable of. And that's really what we want to uh, use as our criteria for moving forward is what can you do? Staff fill in the choice board with clients' input. So a lot of places, like when you're doing your monthly schedule, some people have like a big like a whiteboard, 31 days in the month, write in the items. Other people, maybe do it on a computer screen and then print it out, or a lot of different big calendar and you just write it in with a marker. But staff can work with the individuals. Hey, what would you like to see? We want to go. We're thinking about an outing for next Saturday. We want to go somewhere in with a couple groups. And so, what would different groups like to do for that date? And figure out activities. Have several clients who just want to have someone tell them what they should do. I ran into that quite a bit where providers would say, I asked the, the individuals in my facility what they want to do. Well, all right, well, you just plan something. I don't care. It's okay. Yeah. And we want to try to let them know that their opinion is valid and is valued, and that we'd like to hear what they have to say as part of the decision making about the activities that we're planning, about the schedule that we're doing, about the meals that we're planning, that et cetera. So all the things that go into the type of service that you're providing can be theirs to be a part of. Um, the rules stipulate that individuals must have the freedom to control their daily lives, including the choice of whom they interact with and how they spend their time. Okay, so we want to make sure that if they like certain individuals but don't like other individuals, that they can have time the way they would like to have time. Some folks have shared that if there is um, a program that has multiple DSPs, hey, I like working with this person. I don't like working with this other individual over here. How do we make sure that we try to respect that and get that individuals program day, their residential services and supports in the evenings and on weekends done by the individuals that they would prefer. Include the ability to engage in community life, seek employment, competitive settings, and have access to food at any time. And again, there's more on that one in another objective specific to residential on the food. But choices. This is what this one's really expressing again. Supporting the integration of individuals into their communities and safeguarding their rights to make personal choices about their lives. And again, a lot of these are repetitive, but they show up over and over again. When I'm talking to providers about what their challenges are, what they would like to see, where I made suggestions about where they could go. These are the things that seem to come up over and over again. Supporting individuals' autonomy to make personal decisions, such as practicing religion and voting. I talked to a number of folks who said, "Oh, my clients choose not to go to a service on Sunday." Oh, well, that's fine. Or they do like to go, and we take them to the service of their choice. To the extent that individuals are able to understand the election process. This November, it's kind of hard not to notice, but we have a presidential election coming up. And we have two individuals who, if you read what's out there in the media, have taken some very different approaches to looking at issues related to services to persons with developmental disabilities. And so maybe explaining that to folks or sharing with them, a good teaching moment for those of you who watched the recent Democratic nomination process is when Tim Walz's son, who is neurodivergent, who's on the spectrum, was shown, crying out and pointing and saying, "That's my dad, that's my dad." And the media picked that up, and some of the media said, "Hey, this is just, wonderful expression of difference and what have you." Some other media said, "Well, he's a grown man, he shouldn't be crying." And, all of that is a teachable moment to potentially work with some of your individuals on, wait a minute, what are some of the issues related to what's going on currently out there in the political process and the different views on disability and how that can affect potential long-term funding, public policy, etc., related to the work that we do. So helping people understanding the voting process can be very helpful. Okay. Now, this is probably be the last one that I do today, which is, again, the fifth area, which is, again, works for all providers, both day and residential. 6, 7, 8, 9 are just residential, and then 10, which is accessibility, is for both. But choosing supports and who provides them. Okay, utilizing different staff to give options to individuals. So again, if you have more than one staff person potentially working with that person, find out from that individual who they like. Do they have a preference about who they work with and who they don't work with? And can we, as a provider, make that happen? Because sometimes, again, with staffing, and we're limited staffing, we only have so and so on from these hours to these hours, or no, we have to shift this person over here because of other health or behavioral needs. But to the extent that we can provide the individual with the staff persons that they would prefer, we want to try to do that so that people can get the supports from people that they know and that they like. And not only is that just day-to-day supports, but if that individual has self-care needs. So they need assistance with toileting, grooming, bathing, intimate sort of uh, daily activity that it's done by someone that they feel comfortable with. That if they can speak up and share or non-verbally express whom they would prefer, we want to try to respect that as much as possible in terms of, you know, with the staffing that we have. Um, if you have individuals who English is not their primary language, we want to, as much as possible, make sure that we have bilingual, bicultural staff available for them, and options for who people want to be with. So we want to try to respect that. I was just out at a facility last week where I asked about, okay, so how do you sort of make sure that the individuals receive services from the person that they would prefer? And this particular provider said, oh, we are a level 4I, I think it was, and we have part of the day we have one-on-one staffing. And so we have specific staff who are assigned to each resident of the facility. And over time, we've sort of gotten to know who the residents like to assist them with their daily living skills. And during the staffing time that we're at one-to-one, we have those individuals specifically designated for that individual. We also use those individuals if when the door is closed or locked and we knock on the door because we need to come in for some reason, or we want to, or we're requesting to come in for some reason, we have that person who the individual has designated as a preferred individual be the one that goes into their room. So trying to respect that. And this particular facility actually had that in their program design, that they would be using the designated staff person to primarily provide those services. Um, okay, so what do we do when staff are absent, especially for those staff maybe that aren't speaking English, or need or sign or other adaptive, and we have some of our staff are specifically able to assist those folks, and they're not available for some reason. How do we handle those situations? Um, when we're out and about in the community, and are we individual or are we groups? And if there are preferences with staffing, how do we try to balance that? Um, I'm not sure but service providers are not HCBS compliant and unavailable. Um, I'm not sure what, I'm sorry, I don't even remember now why I wrote that one. Organizations reluctant to accept certain participants. What I've noticed, and this is in some ways become even more acute, some providers, especially now that there are certain requirements about uh, the treatment of individuals or how you go about providing those services and supports. Some providers are saying, well, we don't want to take clients with uh, certain behavioral challenges anymore or certain self-care issues. Uh, it has made some providers be a little bit more selective about who they accept, and that can be a challenge. And we don't want that to be that, but we also want to respect that who you work the best with, and those are the individuals that you provide the services for. Um, Finding good matches that have the skill sets that is needed for the person needing the supports. So again, you want to try to find staff who can really help that individual, so that we're not creating a situation where we're making greater behavioral challenges for that person. We're not creating a situation where their 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 healthcare needs are not being taken care of, and they're ending up, needing a higher level of medical attention because the staff doesn't do that. One facility I went out to told me that they actually, when available, uh, and they're looking at potentially hiring new staff, they will ask the individual who, or individuals from the home, if they want to sit in on the interview. Novel approach, to find out, both it's the individual who's applying for the job gets an idea of who that person is all about, and that the individual who's receiving the services can get to meet and see what the vibe is between them and the individual that they're looking to potentially hire. Um, Peer support to providing and receiving services. Sometimes one individual helps another. At Bakersfield ARC, we have an individual who is an employee who goes out and talks about employment to other individuals. So, sometimes using one individual within the facility to talk with other individuals in the program or the facility to really give folks a better understanding of other people's perspective. Uh, and again, do people who are involved get involved in the hiring process? Think about it. What types of supports does a person need that uh, can they do them for themselves? Whenever possible, we want the person to be able to provide their own services, uh, providing individuals opportunities to voice their concerns in a matter and timing of their choosing, consistent with their communication ability and preferences. And again, we want to, they're the decider. Uh, think about what it would be like for you if somebody told you what your day was going to be like, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you and didn't give you a lot of input into what was going on. As I mentioned earlier, think about, would this be okay for you? So we want to make sure that we give people the opportunity to make decisions about their day. All right. At this point, like I said, the next one would be specifically to residential. We can maybe discuss that at another meeting, but I'd like to open it up at this point for a few minutes. If there's any questions or concerns, or you want to challenge anything I said today, go ahead and open up your mic and speak up if you'd like. Okay, hearing no.
Hey, Jeffrey. It's Jeremiah. I like to antagonize you a lot. Question: Have you found I guess much pushback, or I guess partly it's usually I think with any regulations this is what we think is best for people. So
Right.
like examples of the groups in the community. So if you're going out with a group of your friends, let's just say it's your friends, right? And you make a
Uh-huh.
choice to do that, there's nothing in place that says that you have to interact with other people that you don't know. So is there some hesitancy and there's some security with people being in a group, and then it's almost like you're forced to interact with people even if you don't want to. There's a person with autism who's a public speaker, and one of his big things is like everybody's trying to tell me that I have to go out here, I have to be part of the community, but sometimes I just want to be alone.
Yeah.
So I think there is the message of that it's all about choice, and I think that's the goal ultimately, is people have a choice. um, but sometimes, and as we know, these regulations and have changed over time. um, but it seems sometimes it's like we're telling people, and this is my biggest thing, is like people with disabilities, if the message comes across that you have to interact with people without disabilities, which might give the impression that having a disability in of itself and interacting with your peers that have disabilities is in of itself wrong, and that you should be interacting with people without disabilities. Can
Um,
you expound on
yeah,
that?
sure. It comes down to the whole concept of informed choice. If I'm given the option, hey, Jeff, it seems like you feel much more comfortable with this particular group of friends and really don't want to go out in the community, and we'd like you to try a community outing or two, or to just see what this is all about, or let's talk about this as part of your planning process. And then you come back and you said, "Oh, I had an awful time," or "I didn't like that," or no, that's not what I want. And then that becomes documented in your plan that you were given options, because that's really what it's about. It's about giving people options. And you decided that no, you feel more comfortable um, being with, let's say, maybe other persons who are on the spectrum scale, who we used to refer to as Asperger's. So I have a group of peers that also have an old diagnosis of Asperger's, and these are my buddies. We get together, we talk about Pokemon cards, or whatever we choose to interact with, and that's where I feel the most comfortable. And when I went out in the community, I felt like people were judging me. They were, I start talking to them, and they'd walk away, or this or that, or it just didn't feel comfortable for me. Then that gets noted, and then that becomes part of your plan. So I think you can have both. I don't think it has to be an either or. I think for so many years people have been segregated, and so this is a kind of reaction to that. Wait a minute, we need to give people the choice to be out there. But in giving people the choice, if they then decide that, wait a minute, I still would prefer the way it's been done, then if we're really saying you have a choice, then that should be a choice too. Is that an answer?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I think that's the goal. I think sometimes, like I think you mentioned the word reactionary, and I think sometimes a lot of these policies are reactionary. Um, and no, I agree. It's all about choice and people choosing what they want to do out in the community, and with their lives. I think sometimes the message from the people directing the services down. Um, I think the impression on some of, like, I mean, either the home, sometimes maybe programs, is that they have to do this, and that people don't have a choice on. As bad as it
Well,
sounds, that's sometimes how it comes off. I did have
well,
another follow up with. Have you found much? And listening to you talk about when we're talking, asking people where they want to live, if they're happy with their services. Usually those happen in their IPP meetings because obviously
right,
it's short set. So don't you do I think there might be some hesitancy for somebody to speak
right,
freely when most of these agencies are actually in the room with them, because most people in general don't like to say negative things or negative comments about, if that person is in the room, or if they don't like that service, they might be hesitant to just sort of are reluctant to speak up. Has anybody said anything about that possibly in any of
well,
the trainings you've done,
no,
or in
no,
the
no, no, I haven't heard that per se, but that gets back to the point of not having, in many cases, coordinators who have been with that person for extended periods of time. Uh, you know, at one point, one of the Midwest states looked at doing away with kind of like the regional center type system that they had in that state, and said, let's give case management directly to the agencies that are doing it. So let's give it to the residential homes. Let's give it to the day programs. And because they're the ones who are providing the service, they can manage the case the best. And the federal government came in and said, no, we need an intermediary out there to basically keep everybody honest, to make sure, because if the providers are the ones who are deciding on the service, they could decide that their service is best for the person. But you bring up the point that it could also work the other way, where the person doesn't feel comfortable. And again, if we look at that number 3, which talks about freedom from coercion, I shouldn't be able to do something as a provider that makes it so that you feel uncomfortable. I recently heard of a situation where a client spoke up to a family member about some problem in the facility. And I guess the family member then talked to the administrator of the facility saying, hey, some of your DSPs are doing this, this, and this with my family member. The next time that family member came out, the individual said, you got me in some real trouble. Oh, really? What's going on? Well, you told on what I told you to and now the staff are mad at me and they don't want anything to do with me and they won't help me. Well, obviously that was coercive, and there's supposed to be a no retribution policy. But you're right, there is a reality out there, and that's really where a good service coordination model would have service coordinators coming out even before the meeting in an ideal world and talking to that client individually outside of the planning team meeting. And not only should it be done, this whole issue of talking to people about their choice at the planning meeting yearly, for those individuals who are living in any type of residential setting where there's a quarterly meeting, or for day activity where it's semi-annual, annual meeting, those folks should be asked at every meeting about is this continued to be where you want to be. And the new IPP form that's coming out next January actually has a box on there. I have agreed to everything that's in this plan. I have agreed to some of the things. I haven't agreed to anything. And if you click those latter two, which I don't agree necessarily, there has to be a reconvening of the IPP meeting within 15 days with other options being presented. But I think again, this gets back to the whole point of it's the person's plan, and they get to know, and they should be able to make decisions about their own lives. And if someone doesn't feel comfortable in speaking up in that meeting, then there's something wrong. We need to go back to the drawing board and look at what we've accomplished or haven't accomplished with these HCBS rules.
Definitely. One more follow up. We're talking about individual choice, and what I've noticed, and then I know that in theory it's supposed to be out there supported decision making. What I've seen a lot recently, and the past few years, is more of the school systems pushing still conservatorship for people,
Right.
which then takes their choice away. So there's still this disconnect between. I mean, there's one. I just there just recently there was one person, he's just graduating high school, and the parents they're pushing conservatorship, so they're taking away that person's choice right before they're like as they're turning into adult.
Um,
And the court system still, at least what I've seen, at least in Kern County, a lot is still is working, I guess, not to the best ideals of what the limited conservatorships are, and they're just basically giving those conservators blanket conservatorship over all those choices. And one of the main ones, obviously the most is the is the social and sexual relationships. So that's also, I think, a big barrier to people having a choice in their life. And still think from the school system. So I don't know if there's been any discussion about that and connecting with the school systems and pushing more supported decision making so that individuals has a choice and who's helping support their lives and making choices about informed choices.
um, that really needs to be some of the advocacy organizations that are out there. That, there is the Disability Rights California, also the regional center system through its the local regional centers need to really work with the schools and with the courts to get them up to speed on the new direction. If you go down to like LA or Orange County and you go into the probate court, you get very different types of probate hearings for persons with IDD than you do here in Kern in terms of the philosophy and what necessarily gets granted and doesn't get granted in terms of the powers. So it really, we're currently in an interesting situation because Kern is going through some fairly substantial turnover in their senior management. The executive director is gone to work for DDS. The director of client services is no longer there. And so some shifts are going to be made. Possibly some new people are going to be coming in. This is a good time for the community and for persons like yourselves to really talk with the board of directors of the regional center. And once the new management comes on, about how they can work with the high school district, with the Kern County Superior Court probate section, and other services specifically to address some of these concerns. Because you're right, going towards full conservatorship is not consistent with the goals and objectives of what we're looking at with HCBS and with some of the new rules about making informed decision making.
Would that be more of a conversation with regional center? Because regional center still has to give the recommendation with limited
Right,
conservatorships to the court. So
right,
this is ongoing. So part of that
right,
problem is regional center themselves.
right. I would think so. I would think that but again, that's if the courts are deciding on a limited conservatorship.
Well, what I'm saying, they're put in for limited conservatorships because they have intellectual and developmental disabilities. But those 7 powers that they give them, except
Right,
for financial, becomes almost like a general conservatorship. So they're giving them all 7 powers. So they're not going really for general conservatorship; they're going for the limited.
right.
And at that point, and the person in high school is a regional center uh,
Yeah,
consumer. So it
I
comes
think
into
that
regional center, I think, advocating as well, and that's their
right.
role. And sometimes I don't think they do the best interest of the
I
individual.
don't quote me on this, Jeremiah, but I believe that the actual section of the probate code that talks specifically to these limited conservatorships says based on the recommendation of the director of the regional center. So, and then the regional centers delegate that to contract psychologists. So they use psychologists to do the testing, and then they make the recommendation. But ultimately, it's supposed to, if I recall correctly, it's the director of the regional center that makes the recommendation.
Okay.
So if the regional center has a philosophy of, wait a minute, we feel like that the least restrictive alternative to conservatorship should be reviewed prior to making a determination of more restricted type of decision making, then that can be done. And I'll look that up. And I'll get back to you specifically on that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for attending. Again, we're looking at over the next few months making some changes in the way we do some of the trainings. And so there were only about 6 or 7 people on today. It reflects the fact that the current model isn't working the way we would like it to. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll get a better model, because that's what it's all about. It's continually looking at making changes to make things better.
Sorry, I
And with
didn't have a question, but I did want to mention I know if you were not here on the last session when we went over for the new IPPs and the way that it was designed, or how to fill that out. But I did put the link in the chat, so if you want to look into that, and the notes on that one too, the memo and regarding it. So if anyone's interested in that to see exactly what Jeff was talking about, it is there in the chat. So before we go ahead and discontinue, if someone needs that, to go ahead and click that link.
All right. Thank you for that, Valerie. Okay. Well, thank you all today, and we'll see you hopefully in the future. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeff.